Good old River Raid. A fondly remembered classic from the Atari 2600 library. Not so much in my case though. In my case, it was a fondly remembered fun time on my Atari 7800 Pro system back in my formative years, and it is a game that I hold many fond memories of playing to this day. Nowadays though, River Raid's been relegated to one of the several emulated 2600 video games on this Activision Anthology disc for PlayStation 2 that I got for really, really cheap. Roughly 40 Activision VCS classics on a single disc from the days when Activision created fun and sometimes innovative video games, and truth be told, this disc isn't a bad deal actually. But back to River Raid. River Raid's premise is quite simple actually. You're raiding a river. That's it. That's all I have to tell you. That title says it all actually. River Raid. You raid rivers. That's all you're getting in terms of story, and quite frankly, that's all you ever really needed back in the day. And even today, but in any case, you control a little yellow plane flying down a river and you're supposed to blow crap up. All the while flying over refueling barges to fill up on gas, because if you run out, you will die. Of course, you will also die if you crash into anything such as targets and land. Such is life in River Raid. And life in River Raid is pretty good as a matter of fact. This is a game that despite its aged audio and visual presentation is still as fun to pick up and play today as it was back in the day when it was brand spanking new. Not to mention it's a pretty slick playing game, giving quite a bit of control over your plane, such as speeding it up and speeding down. And if you fiddle around with the difficulty switches, you can set your shots to fly straight forward, or you can set them to guide along with your plane, which makes for interesting gameplay and attack options. I myself just don't bother with that fluff, but it's a nice option to have. In any case, River Raid controls pretty slick and the gameplay keeps the pace up rather nicely. You can only have one shot on screen at a time, and your shots cannot pass through solid land. But your shots fire fast enough that that bit of information is almost irrelevant in the long run. And while enemies don't fire back at you, that doesn't make them any less of a threat, as they will move back and forth to try and impede your progress. Not to mention there are jets that'll fly by at quick speeds to try and ram you. And there's also the matter of keeping your fuel tank filled in order to progress farther into the game, which is done by flying over refueling barges that you could also destroy for points. All these elements contribute to the overall challenge of River Raid, and it often results in a bit of strategic planning on your part, especially on segments of the river that splits into two paths. River Raid doesn't look like much, but what's there is understandable to decipher and looks pretty clean. In fact, River Raid's one of the more pleasant looking games on the Atari VCS library. You can make out the tankers, choppers, fueling bases, and checkpoints. The houses clearly look like houses, and on a whole, everything looks rather nice. The river and surrounding land almost bears a minimalist feel to it, something that subsequent ports would attempt to remedy, but it's easy to tell apart, and quite honestly, if you can't tell the difference between water and land, you'll no doubt get a harsh reminder. Sound in River Raid, well, there's not a whole lot of it, but it sounds rather nice. The engine sounds isn't grainy, scratchy white noise, it's rather pleasant, and I like how it changes pitch with the speed of your plane. The rest are your usual explosion and firing sounds, but they sound nice, and refueling plays a nice little jingle. Sound is nice. Just like raiding rivers is nice. There's no doubt that River Raid's one of the perennial Atari 2600 VCS classics that stand the test of time. What it lacks in high-end visuals and whatnots, it fully makes up for with a gameplay concept that's easy to get into, offers a nice little challenge and a bit of diversity, and most importantly is just plain old fun to play. This is a game that should definitely be a part of any Atari collection if it isn't there already, or if you have a PlayStation 2 laying around, it's on the Activision Anthology collection released for the console. In either case, River Raid is definitely an oldie that's still a goodie. Now go and raid that river before the river raids you. Oh god, that's awful. That's just end it. Goodbye.